Greetings. Welcome to Extra Hours, part of the Office Hours Global network. If you are seeing this on YouTube and want to get a bit more connected, then go to officehours.global/join. We'll send you an email with a bunch of links in it, and that'll get you connected. So if you're watching live, you can join us in Makana. You can chat along. We'll keep an eye on that and also ask some questions. This is the 25th episode of Extra Hours, which is pretty cool. We've been doing these at night, night at least in America. It's quite a comfortable 12:30 p.m. here in Adelaide, South Australia. So I'm quite happy in the middle of the day. On the last day of the year for me, and I get to experience the New Year's Eve. So we'll see what happens tomorrow as we kick into the new year. We've assembled a few people here to have a little chat through some things. And so starting off, we have Alex Lindsay. Hello, Alex.
Hello, hello. Good to be here.
Nice to have you here. How does it feel doing a show as bookends of your day when you start your day and end your day?
It's long, like it's a lot of, I don't feel quite as crisp as I do in the morning because it's, but it's fun. It's fun to have a different, it's definitely a different flow for the evening. So it works out well.
That's right. Well, it's okay if you're a little soggy tonight. You're
soggy,
not as crisp.
Yeah, exactly.
Just a little soggy is fine. That'll be all right. And we have Alexander Knight, who's going to ask some questions for us. Hello, sir, up in Canada there.
Good to be here, Grant.
Wow. Is it, were you on this morning as well?
I was. Yeah, so much like thing. Alex, I'm going to be riding the fader to get that, try to get that evening energy in my voice.
Yeah, very good. And CJ there. Hello, CJ. How are you?
Hello. Good evening. See, I took the morning off, and so I'm just hitting stride right now. We're just starting to come under cruising altitude. We're feeling good.
You're bringing the energy. Nice.
Absolutely. But we're just slowly trying to figure out how do I take just one little decoration down at a time so that it's not a big shock, because I got progressively more festive as the month of December went on. And now I was like, okay, if I take it all at once, it's going to be a letdown. So I got to take out the Yule log. That was the first thing to go. I'm going to drop the hat. Then, one set of lights down at a time, and then it'll just come right back up to normal.
We can make a thumbnail of your, we can make a flip book of your thumbnails and see everything disappear. That'll be nice. There you go. Over in Texas is Nigel. Hello, Nigel.
Greetings from Texas.
Yes.
How are you today? I've been waiting to come back on the show because I have been watching an Australian television series, which I won't tell you now. We'll wait for recommendations if you still do that at the end.
Okay, good.
But I don't know how to pronounce the name, so I've been waiting for the opportunity for some proper linguistic training.
I'll be happy to help. Now, I heard, was it on the Sunday show, I think you might have been on, and you were talking about your experience counting backwards to the BBC. So did you have some radio experience? What was that?
Yeah, I used to work when I was a student. I worked for Radio Nottingham in the UK. Mostly volunteer. I did a few shifts here and there. In fact, if I'm honest, I did it because they gave me a film review pass. So I saw 100 and something movies every year as a film reviewer. And because the press shows in Nottingham were Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning, my lecture schedule had to be organized around not having lectures Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning. So that was my study. But no, we were talking, Alex was talking about the pips. And for anyone who, UK or European or people who know the BBC, there were 5 pips and a long one up to the top of the hour. And typically, in fact, Alex posted a good video today of the BBC music department showing how they use that now. But it was a big thing. And if you ever get to London, a great day outing is Greenwich. Go to Greenwich, where Greenwich Mean Time comes from, the Greenwich Observatory, and you can hear the pips for real. But it's a great, and you can stand on, east and west and all of that stuff. But it's a great great outing. But yeah, no, I used to have to manage to the pips.
There you go. Very nice. And last but certainly not least is 1F Jeff on the panel here today, but also always keeping his eye on the cloud infrastructure. Is that right? Is it all ticking along okay, Jeff?
Everything seems to be working right now. We're on the air. So that's
right.
the first step.
You get paid double any of us
When it goes on the air.
Yeah, because you get double. So we've got a couple of questions there, but I am interested. The thing I spoke about this a little bit last week. I'm interested for us just to and the way I want to shape it tonight is to think about leveling up where we're at as far as our home setup in the 5 different areas that we often talk about, right? So networking, audio, lighting, video, and set or environment. So if we were to start there, I'll go first because it'll give you a chance to have a little think about this. So from it, we'll do it. We'll talk about networking first, and we'll go through the panel, and we'll see. Because I'm interested to hear what people think about where you would like to go, because all of this is based upon what we hear from office hours, right? Because we probably wouldn't know where we want to go if it wasn't that we heard people who are spending $30 on something, and then Alex is spending 30 grand on something, and we're trying to work out what we can fit in between. So you choose whether you're using a realistic budget, or if there was no budget, what would you do? For me, in networking, I'm pretty happy with my PepLink that I've got running, and then going into a Ubiquity setup for everything else. I would love to get to 10 gig, so I'd like it to sort of. I've got one 10 gig running into this main computer in my Mac Studio, but having 10 gig coming in and sort of working and being ready for internet, that sort of thing. That would be the big change is upgrading to 10 gig. But there is a little bit to do, some tweaking that I need to do on some of the double natting that I've got going on. So I need to squish some gnats. We don't have gnats in Australia, I don't think, but I know that there is such a thing as little gnats. Are they like mosquitoes? Is a gnat like a mosquito? Is that no?
They're just super annoying.
Very annoying, especially sand gnats. Like when you walk around on a beach and then just those little things is all over your legs.
Yeah.
The worst.
Well, you walk through a field in the spring or on a really damp day in the summer, at least in the Midwest and out in Pennsylvania, and you just feel like Pigpen. Like you feel like you're walking around like that guy from Charlie Brown, because they're just these little tiny, and you can't even, if you stop and try to look at them, you can't see them. But if you're looking forward, all of a sudden it's just like this is, and that's like, I have a very vivid memory growing up of just there's just always being gnats all summer, because you'd be out running around in a cornfield or something, and there's just everywhere.
I like an IT guy in CJ is talking about gnats and going into fine detail about the gnat rather than us talking about the networking aspect of gnats. I like it. I appreciate it. All right, so Alex, Mr. Lindsay, how would you upgrade your networking?
Well, there's not much to do as far as, I'm at a gig, and I don't know if I need anything faster than that in my home network. I'm at about a gig down and 300 up. It's kind of funny. I did go ahead and invest in a Dream Machine, as well as the modem. I got both of those, and as well as some APs. So now it's all. What's nice about it is it's all kind of in one little bubble. Like open up your iPhone, you suddenly see everything that's working, and I find that to be quite pleasing. To see the whole network. And but what was funny was that Comcast told me, when I plugged in my other when I had my other modem, they're like, oh, you can't go higher than 40 megs a second up. And I was like, I just paid for more. And they said, no, that's as fast as it'll go. And so I went back and forth with them a little bit, and then finally gave up. And I figured I'm not paying. They didn't end up charging me anymore for it. So I was like, well, okay, it'll be what it is. And then when I put the new modem in, I talked to a new person, and he got a little flustered because he was behind and he was having trouble getting the modem set up. and he hit something. I don't know what it was. He's like, oh, I'm going to reset this thing. And then suddenly I had 300 megs up, and he said, is it working now? And I'm like, it's fine. I didn't I didn't want to tell him, like, I didn't say anything.
It's working.
It's like, it's working just fine. And so now I'm at 330 megs up or whatever. And that's as fat where I live. I mean, I even talked to Dane, who's he's the owner of Sonic. And I was like, Dane, when can I get Sonic up here? And he's like, $330,000 is what it would cost for me to run it up there. You know, to get it up there through all the things that have to happen and everything else. You have to have enough people, and the density of people in where I live is not high enough to run fiber. And so, you know, so that Frontier keeps on teasing us, going, hey, there's 5 gigs up and down coming. But it's never, I don't think it's ever going to come. You know, I've just given up. I don't know what happened. I don't know what it took. They ran fiber. We saw their trucks outside our house, but for some reason we don't see any bandwidth. So if that comes, then I will upgrade to and I won't get rid of Comcast, most likely. I'll just have it as the backup, you know, and then I'll have a primary and backup connection, because it is, I mean, I don't feel comfortable doing shows out of my house, you know, like, because I don't have a primary and a backup, you know, and I want to go to an office where I've got 2 internet connections. So, so from a networking perspective, you know, I'll probably continue to grow the Ubiquiti, you know, line, just because I tend to be kind of like, once it's working, I'll probably stay inside of the bubble, because I just don't like to think about things like that. A lot of it, I think probably a PoE switch is in my future. I've got like this Netgear PoE switch is serving a lot of things, and I probably would get a Ubiquiti PoE. You know, I have thought about the Netgear 4250s, and so that I don't know if I need it, you know, for my home stuff. So, but you know, it depends on how much Dante I put on everything. One thing that I'm getting ready to do is start testing some software that I'd want to run for that. So on Hertz is what we're looking at playing with. And then that we can talk about that when we talk about audio as well. But I think that might be something that would require me to think about my network a little harder. So that's where I'm at.
Okay. Interesting. Mr. Knight, where are you with your networking?
Yeah, I've actually made some changes very recently. About 6 months ago, I got rid of my, or I stopped using my ISP supplied modem for all my routing and all that sort of stuff. So I installed a Ubiquiti Edge router, and I had a couple of smaller 8-port PoE Ubiquiti switches, and then I just kept on adding these small switches. And I said, I got to do this properly. I don't want all these small little switches. So a friend of mine who's a networking guy hooked me up with a Cisco 2960, which is a 24-port switch, and it has PoE Plus. So it has a lot more PoE and a lot more ports, and just rewired my entire network here. So I'm quite happy with that switch. Also, it helped me prepare for Dante, because I've also done some major changes with my audio. I'm on a new console now with Dante, so I got that working. I had to do VLANs and all that kind of stuff that you got to do. As far as my bandwidth is concerned, I'm looking into upgrading to fiber as well. But the last time I did that, which was about 6 years ago, the fiber line that goes into my suite, the guy yanked on it and it broke. And so now they have to run a new fiber line, and it's just, it's very sad. So as far as my bandwidth is concerned, I would definitely like a little more headroom, because I've got almost a gig down, but I only have about 100 megabits. This is the problem with cable internet, right? So this is the problem with it. So I've got 100 megabits up. Now I'm doing 4K live streaming, which has been stable and which has been fine, but I would like a little more bandwidth in the upload speed. So we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Aaron was saying in the chat, he's got 5 gig up and down and doesn't really need it, but it's nice to have it. And that's kind of how I feel. I just changed from, for many years, I was 100 down and 6 up, and it was the most that I could get, 6 megabit up.
And what are you at now?
Managed. Well, now I'm more like you. I'm a gig down with 400 up. And what I noticed, it then went to 40 up, and that was a good jump from 6. But now that I'm on 400, I kind of feel like at some point I'll get, say asynchronous, and it'll be a gig down and gig up. But I don't know that I'd notice a big difference going from 400 to a gig.
I mean, the place that you see the difference is Frame.io or Blackmagic Cloud,
where it can use the whole thing.
where it like Frame.io just saturates the line. In fact, we had it. They weren't protecting it in one of the buildings that we were in, so we started uploading it. It would just take out everybody else because it just goes. I own all of this, and it just uploads really fast. And you get used to that. Aspera, it does the same type of thing where it just kind of grabs onto your entire bandwidth. And when you have big, 300 gig files or something like that, I mean, literally, I've driven into the office from my house because it's faster to drive all the way to the office, 40 minutes away and upload than it is to do it from, because it could take 10 times or more longer to do it. And so, so anyway, yeah, so that's where uploads to Frame.io is where you really see it. A lot of places you don't, because almost nothing on the internet runs faster than 800 megs a second. Like, it's
No,
the vast majority of the world doesn't live in that world.
I know that I'm a little bit of an outlier on my usage of Dropbox, and I swear by it. And since I've been on the 400 meg up, I'm regularly uploading to Dropbox at 350, and
That's
so I
good.
can see it, and so it's great. And so generally, if I'm doing a gig, files of 3, 4, 5 gig files, they're fine.
Right.
And that's the other thing. I regularly do files over 10, 20 gig files onto Dropbox, and it works great.
Right.
So some things have probably changed a little bit there, but of course I'm paying $3,000 a year or something, like it's a lot.
Right.
So once you have so many users and things, but all right, we are going to have to move quickly, aren't we? CJ, networking, you got the right person to ask.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I moved to the place in Cincinnati in the middle of the year, I had for the first time got fiber internet to the house that was over a gig. So I had 2 gigs in each direction, and I just ran a speed test, and I got like 2,100 megabits down and 1,946 megabits up. So I'm feeling really, really nice. But what I wasn't anticipating is that, okay, now you need to start thinking about what are all of your network choke points and what do you have to upgrade. So I've got about half of the house on 10 gig switches, half of the house on 2.5, depending on what it's serving. Embarrassingly, though, I am still using the ISP provided modem because they gave me an Eero Max 7, and that would be $500 to buy new, and they're charging me $7 a month. And the only thing I don't like about it is it's just an opaque box. It's like there's no knobs, there's no finite control, no VLAN. So I've got a really fast network, but I can't do anything spiffy with it. And maybe that's a little wink from the universe saying, don't mess with it. So, but if I were to do anything, I would upgrade to some Ubiquity stuff on the back end. But so far, knock wood, it's good.
Jeff.
Not at my house, nor am I ever hardly. So it's for me, it's infrastructure here that we have in place is 10 gig everywhere. Every switch is back to a master aggregation switch, which is 10 gig, all in 4250s is what we moved on. Got a box of Ubiquity stuff. Anybody that wants it, yeah, it's going up quick. It's just we outgrew it. We needed more. And so I've been really happy with what the Netgear products were able to give us, the reliability and the speed that we needed. But everything is linked, and some of the switches are dual link, so we have lags where they're actually two different 10 gigs going back and forth, both for continuity and also reliability, but also for just extra speed whenever you need it. Our servers are 10 gigged in. Everything pretty much is connected by 10 gigs at some point. So I don't really have anything more to past that. I do have an Arista switch that I could put into place if I wanted to go to 100. I just don't have a need for it. Our internet coming in is gigabit by gigabit times 2. So we have a primary and a backup on fiber. And then we have a cable that's, I think a gig. I don't know. I've never turned it on hardly. Like actually use it. But it's a gig, it's a Spectrum. So it's a gig by 30 or something, useless for streaming or production purposes. Bringing down stuff, it's okay. Then we have cellular behind that, and then we have Starlink when the hurricane hits, it would go to Starlink, and then everything goes. Yeah, so we're prepared, but it's not home. I guess you'd say it's my home away from home.
Yeah. Okay, Nigel.
Well, not rural Texas. This is metropolitan Texas. So we have Google Fiber to the building. We have a 2.5 down, a 1 up. And actually, I made my networking investment last year. I went M4250s. So I have 2 of them, and that's what I use. And my objective for the next year is to learn what they will do. Because when I grew up with networking, it was all SNA, which you probably never heard of. So this whole IP thing is still very new to me. So I'm having to relearn all of my level 7 networking ideas. But no, M4250s, it drives my Dante stuff. Really love them. And we're renting and probably moving in a few months. So we're not going to do anything that damages or changes the structure of the building. We'll just use what Google gives us. And it's great.
That's very cool. Yeah, I'm using my 10 base T BNC connectors, and I've got my little T connectors adjoining, and it's great. If I just want to plug in another computer, I just put another T junction in. It's great. Don't need any switches. Yeah, them were the days. All right, we're gonna have to move much quicker. So here we go. We're gonna do let's do audio in speed round. So audio, I'm pretty happy with where my setup is. I've got the Neumann. What is this one? 103. That's right. I always can't remember if it's 102 or 103. I'm pretty happy with that. And the X32. Hopefully, I get a reason why I could buy the wing at some point, because I do like the extra channel width and things that's got on it, which would be very nice. But happy at the moment with the X32. So I don't think I need to spend money there. Alex?
I'm pretty close to. I mean, I'll probably keep on playing with my mics. I've got a couple of them, and this one this is the SM7B, and I wanted to have it. I'm learning how to use it, learning what it does, and listen to it, because I use it for Michael Krasny, and so it just helps me understand what the best case scenario or best use cases are for it. But I'll probably play around a little bit in the mic area. I'm still pretty happy with my interface. I mean, I would love to have a full-on like mixer that had noise assist. That's the big thing that for me, like I do have enough fans that are going on here that I need the noise assist. I feel like I need the noise assist, and but I don't have, it's just one of those things. Like if there was like a little box that just did noise assist, I'd buy it. If it just went through it and just did that one little thing. And then I'd probably, I'd like to have something more robust. I am playing with, I'm going to start playing with on Hertz at home, as well as we're going to look at it in general, which is a software-based mixer, kind of a nodal-based mixing console. And so Arista, I think, is what it's called, but is the software, but the company's called on Hertz. And so I kind of love that idea. But I got to make sure that's going to be where I got to think about my network a little bit, because, I can already, I still, have to kind of know whether things are dropping out or not. Right now I'm in the luxury of almost everything's all hardwired. So, so I'm thinking through that right now. But those are the only things I'm really thinking about. What I really need is I want to be able to play back audio more fluidly. I can kind of do it, but I have to kind of think about it. There's a little bit of like a loop back and Dante and a bunch of other things to go from one computer to the other. And so I kind of want to, that's why I really want a bigger mixer, is so that I have just a larger mixing system that I can just, and then there's a temptation, because I have a Scorpio. It's like, but I don't want to put it into the pipeline. I used to have it in the pipeline, then I didn't use it for anything else. Now I use it for all kinds of things, and I don't want to put it back in the system. So, because what's really nice is then I have the noise assist, and then it just goes Dante to everything, and it all works, And so anyway, but being able to seamlessly grab audio and move it around between all the devices that I have sitting here is one thing that I'm trying to figure out. So it's less about quality and more about flexibility and scalability.
Very good. Mr. Knight.
Yeah, as I alluded to earlier, I made some recent changes. I'm actually quite happy with the microphone I've been using for a while. This is one that's not made anymore. It's the AKG C414 BULS, which ULS stands for ultra linear. It's got mechanical switches, not digital switches. My new console is a Yamaha DM-3, so I moved from a Soundcraft UI-24 to the DM-3. The DM-3, noticeably better sounding preamps, lower noise floor, higher gain. you shouldn't be surprised by that. So I'm quite happy with the way it sounds. I have almost no processing, just a little downward expansion to kind of minimize the ambient noise floor in the room, which is already very, very low because I have a lot of acoustic treatment in here. So very happy with the Yamaha DM-3 and my AKG.
Nice. CJ?
Right before the show, actually, I decided that I was going to give the Stellar X3 another shot, which I think I've figured out why I wasn't liking the sound before. So we'll see how I feel about it in a week. The only thing, it's noticeably larger. Like this is the X2 next to it, and it looks. I mean, it's bigger in the frame. So if I wasn't already explaining the microphone, I'm going to be explaining the microphone more. I think.
Yeah. What's that thing in front of you?
What are you doing in there? I was like, well, can you hear me? Okay.
I have learned that if you have a dark colored mic, I have learned that you can just wear a dark shirt and no one notices.
Put it right,
like no one
right
noticed.
there, and it's like,
yeah, you just get it right. A dark shirt on this. If I just say here, this is not a dark enough shirt, but if I wear a black shirt, I noticed that no one notices. They're just like, wow, you sound really good, and you're just like, oh, you try.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think I'm going to throw a drop ceiling in here as well. Just a little 6-inch drop ceiling with a little bit of insulation above it to get out the room above me, because it usually doesn't come through, but on occasion I can hear it and I'm kind of nervous. And then and also then I have I can get those little scissor clamps and start hanging things a little more freely. I have some Varipoles right now, but Alex says that's the way to be.
Grids.
Yeah. We'll get to that. Jeff?
On my side, I've been fighting something for a long time, and Alexander, you've prompted me to fix it. So I've been babying this silly little Personas preamp into my monitoring system. Everything is hooked up through it. Well, I have these Gentle X now on my desk. I changed that out recently, and so I really hear the noise that thing makes. And then I also know that I have there's one click. I'm one click away from massive distortion at any given time. If I try to go a little bit louder, the Personas just goes to crap. So I decided just a minute ago that I'm finally just going to go 100% to the Dante side, back to that. I had it set up at one point in time, but I do have my 204, so I have Dante sitting on my desk. I'm just not using Dante into Zoom. So I will fix that next time I'm on any of the shows. It will be better, much more better.
We've got commitments happening. Expensive
on the last
friends, day of the year.
Expensive friends trigger warning. Insert here.
Yeah, very good.
The sad part is I have all the gear. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's like I have all the gear. It's just I've never broken down to do it. That's all.
That's the best thing. It's all just sitting there. You just have to dust it off. Nigel.
Well, you can see it's a Stellar X2. One of the first big purchases I was convinced to make was my Mix Pre 3. So that lives and noise assist, particularly if you live in an apartment block. They're not quiet places to live, and it's not like I can completely change the walls of a rental property. So it's a really useful thing. I actually have an X32 as well, which I do use for some other purposes. But I do have Neumann MV like everybody else does. And particularly I've seen on a lot of the UK podcast companies, Gary Lineker's company, they all use the BMC 104s. So I think they look great, and I have no justification for getting one. So we'll see how that works.
Well, it sounds good. It's working well. All right, lighting. I'm still, what are they? Godox. Still got some Godox going here. I can always do some improvements, and I think that there could be a grid may actually help me, but it might. So to your point, Nigel, I was renting this place for 9 years until I bought it this year. And the landlord wanted to kick us out, and he said, do you want to buy it? I said, I won't be able to afford it. He said, well, I want to sell it to you because it'll be way easier. So just tell me what price. So I was like, okay. So I got a great deal on buying the house. So that's
fantastic.
That worked out pretty well.
That's a very Australian story. Like,
right.
just Australians just figure it out reasonably. Like, we're not going to sit there and try to squeeze everything out. Like, this will be easier, and let's not go down this path.
No, it was really nice. They were very nice. But yes, so I built this this room within my garage, and so it's all a kind of somewhat soundproof room, but it's a little bit small, and so it's just if I had a little bit more height, then I could do a bit more with lighting. But I'm relatively happy with just these little Godox things that Carl recommended. A couple of tubes, got the 4 tubes, and the esports lights is what I've got, 2 of them, and they're great. I think they work great. So Alex?
Yeah, I'm right now I want to put a grid in. I have a grid, but it's made out of maker pipe and sags a little bit. And I'm in an earthquake area, and the first thing I have to do if there was an earthquake is get out of here. And so I do want to. And the other thing is, it kind of creates a box of a 10 by 10 box, as long as the EMT rail goes, or the the pipe goes. So the 10 by 10 box inside of a 15 by 19 room. And so what I really want to do is build a grid that just kind of swallows up the whole room. So to run those spans, I need speed rail, and that speed rail is, I mean, it's gotten a lot more expensive since COVID, I think, because I was like, just the rail for a basic grid, I was like, that's like $2,000, and so I was, it's like $10 a foot or something like that. And so it was much more than I expected. And so anyway, it was just a lot more than I expected. But I for some reason I remembered paying $2 a foot or $3 a foot. And it was probably what, I don't know. Anyway, so the speed rail, putting speed rail up is my big investment. So it's a couple $1,000s to do that. And then once that's up, it allows me to rotate everything, build everything up. It kind of part of it's me giving up on the fact that I'm probably not going to go anywhere from here for my home office for quite some time. And so I've been trying to put it off because it's a lot of money. But so the other thing is that I have a, kind of a big soft light that I've created with a couple Nan lights and just a big frame that I built with maker pipe. And that's like 3x5. I'm probably going to make that bigger and pull the lights back a little further. And then I'm going to rotate everything 45 degrees, just because I think it'll look nicer going into the corner. And then the other thing I have to think about is I just cannot figure out what I want to do with, I mean, I've now turned them off for a variety of other reasons, but, how I light the background has been kind of sometimes I have lights on it, sometimes I don't. And so I kind of want to have that, a little bit of light back there. And so it's more of the background is probably what I'll spend more time working on than the foreground, as far as lighting goes.
Fair enough. Mr. Knight.
Yeah, with I mean, certainly I want to make some improvements. My light panels right now that I'm using, and I only got them years ago just because I'm a Chauvet dealer and I got them at Cost Plus 5. So I got these Chauvet cast panels, and they come in packs of 2. It's a bit of a smaller light than I would like. It's about 9.5 by 8.5 inches. And one of the first things that I did was I mounted them on the ceiling, and I have a lot of them. I'd have to count them, but I have a lot of them. And one of the things that I did was I searched on Amazon, and I found that Newer makes a little egg crate thing that you can put that actually fits on these lights. So I put a box on it with an egg crate just to control the spill. And it's working pretty well for me. One thing I might want to do is just build a larger source, and kind of Alex, inspired me to build a large frame and just put a large piece of silk on there to even further soften it. At some point down the road, maybe I'll upgrade them, but it's going to be expensive. Because I have a lot of them, I'm gonna have to replace them all, and then of course if I'm gonna replace lights, then I'm gonna want DMX lights, and that's a whole nother thing. But right now, all the lights are wired to a couple of switches on the wall, so I've got a very fast setup. I can just flick those switches when I walk in here, which is in my living room, by the way, and I've got all my lights ready to go. The only lights that I have DMX'd are the little Parcan lights. I've got 17 of these Orion Orcan 3 lights. They're only about that big. Those are DMX'd. I've got those connected to my network, so I use ArtNet and I use Luminaire to control the apps, and that's what does the splash of color behind me. They're actually mounted on, not all 17 of them are mounted behind me, but I have a bunch, I think at 5 or 6 behind me, and then I have more behind the couch. So that's my setup.
That's really cool. CJ.
I also subscribe to the Alex frame methodology. So I made it not with EMT but with PVC because it was easier for me to strap to my car, and I feel like I was going to hurt it up here. And it also is very light, so it's literally I have industrial electrical ties that are screwed into the ceiling and then it's suspended. The only thing that I don't like, it's a little toppy. So I got this about down as far as I could, but I still, you can tell if I haven't slept enough because when I smile, I give, shelves under my eyes. So I've got to work on that. And then the background, I'm trying to figure out how do I, when it's not the holidays, do some sort of light in the background because I put this in December and really like it, but I can't have it all year round. And like Alexander's looks really nice, but I don't want to totally rip him off on on his design. So it's like, how do you do it that doesn't make you over the top neon light YouTuber? Because I still need this to look normal in the meeting. But yeah, but as far as lighting the background, similar to what Alexander had said, I have the newer versions of what he showed with the Chauvet, the little 1200 lumen or 1200 LED, whatever RGBs. There's 4 of them up here, and then there's 2 600 in the back that are just throwing a bounce on there. So yeah, it's something environmental lighting because everybody's got their thing. Bill's got that little slash that he does projected onto the curtain. Alexander's got the lights in the back. And hey, if we're going to go HDR, you got to have specular highlights.
Yes.
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 Jeff?
No. I have lighting, and I have it way too much lighting, I guess. Again, one of those things that I bought for production, and hey, we're not doing any production right now, so just put that up on the ceiling. So I have a grid ceiling here, 2x4 grid ceiling, and so I use the little scissor clips with a baby pin hanging down, and so I have a 300 watt LED here and a 300 watt LED there with soft boxes hanging off of them. Honestly don't remember the manufacturer. Nan lights. The Nan lights, they're by color, and they're DMX controls, so I can balance out levels and stuff without having to really fight the blocks and all. I have a short ceiling in here, so I can't get a lot of height to give me a hair light. Turns out I don't really need a hair light much, so I don't have one. But now that I don't have my LED wall behind me, I'm still tasseling a little bit about exactly what I want to do as a behind the over the shoulder type look. Not sure yet.
Nigel, you're between places, right?
Yes, we're renting the moment. So I have the Idiot's Guide to Lighting, which is not bad, just really easy to operate, which is Elgato. And I have 2 Elgato key lights and 2 key light airs, I think, behind me, where they're throwing them, which just have a gel on top of them. And I find that really very easy. I'd like to do more, fancy color, the way that CJ was talking about it. But at the moment, that's where I am. And they all sit on one button on the Stream Deck. I wish, by the way, I could give them fixed IP addresses, because my network seems to randomly reassign IP addresses to them. So every other morning I have to refix that. But that aside, it's really very easy. If you're a Stream Deck person, it's a great solution.
Now, to go back to networking, you should be able to schedule the MAC address. Yeah. So that's sorry, Grant, I jumped in. I was just
okay.
Yeah, because what we, at one point we had, I believe Pixelcore I think we had 9 systems, and the largest system was a trailer, like a 27-inch foot trailer or whatever, and then the smallest one was like a little one that went out, and all of them, the Meraki's were all set up, but what we did is, instead of having them scheduled against everything having its own IPs, we just said, this is for this MAC address. This MAC address always gets this IP, no matter what. And we put those across the entire. And Meraki makes it really easy to run it across the entire cloud, like to schedule it all the way through. And so then what it meant is that I could ask you what system you were in. Are you in system 8 or system 7 or whatever? And I knew where all the IPs were for every device that was there. I knew where the switcher was, or where the routers were, or whatever, because they were all the same. But what made that possible was we didn't have to think about we left everything in DHCP, and then just had everything scheduled to the reservations. We just reserved those against the MAC addresses. And it's also useful for MAC addresses are useful because, if if my kids fall behind on homework, I don't have to turn the whole house network off or even certain ports. I can just simply say that my son's all his devices can't find a connection.
As he's trying to use Google Classroom, is that what you do while he's trying to log in and use Google Classroom?
No, it's more like while he's doing Discord or games or other things. It's like, oh, that your laptop.
Well, you can just block those out. I'll get with you. I'll show you how to block that out in Unify. I have that.
No. I can do it now. Yeah, I figured that part out.
Yeah.
So you know,
but that might be a good reason to get off my Google Wi-Fi router, because I don't know I can control it by MAC address. So that's a piece of work I have to do.
Right.
Yeah.
You'll need a real
router. I mean, that's one of the many reasons I got the Dream Machine, which, you know, you can decide whether that makes sense or not. But that's it. What's nice about it, it took a little bit to set it up, and I killed one of them. I think I mentioned that a couple weeks ago. And but I I did the one thing you can't do with it, and now I have an extra one that's for parts. But what's nice about it is as you start to add things, as you start to add APs and everything else, it just shows up on this network that you can just see, and you can see everything just kind of populating through the system. And again, on a business end, I prefer Meraki over it. You know, like it feels clunky compared to the Meraki, but as a home, it's as a home networking, it's pretty awesome. You know,
Jeff, what do you use as the router? Because you're saying that you got Netgear all the way through, and that's what I saw with the 4250s particularly. Like, now they're a switch and they're a managed switch, but they're not a router, right? And
no.
You would have
we went to Peplink before we actually went fully into M4250s. Actually, we were moving from to Peplink. What I found is with Ubiquiti is for fail safe and for backup purposes, which is kind of like the whole point of having two WANs, right? I wanted to be able to fail over to the other. It is a minimum of 25 to 30 seconds. Well, I've lost thousands of dollars at that point. So that was the first thing that we did. And actually one of the first newer Peplinks that I put in was at our buddy's Blues place at Sage. We put in a larger 300 series or something like that, big rack mount unit. And we did a failover here. I think it was maybe you on the other end either, but we were doing a Zoom test, and it was like we pulled the primary line. The line never dropped. Nothing did. Yeah. And I was like, okay, that's it. I made up my mind. I went hard into Peplink. We probably have eight or 10 different routers of different sizes now. But that is it. But mostly that's the main reason. And I highly recommend that as a platform. For me, management wise, it's a lot like what Alice is describing with a Meraki you can do, and you can do with Ubiquiti to a point, is where you have a single pane of glass. Well, with In Control, as you well know, if you're using the Peplink, you have In Control available in the unless you pay for the subscription, whatever. It's worth it to me because I see every single one of my units that are online or offline, whatever, and I could administer every one of my units from that one pane of glass, and that's a beautiful thing for me as a control freak that I am. So I prefer to have that capability. Yeah.
So that's probably the line that I would recommend, Nigel, is to look at the Peplink and the what's the entry level one? I've got it now too. The 5G.
There's a Max BR1 5G, I believe. Is that the one you're talking about?
It's cheaper than that. It's only like $300 or something. It's got one cellular modem in it, and it's still got two WANs, and it's just a small box, and then it'll handle everything. And then, because I figure if you're gonna go and get another router, you might as well have something that can handle multiple WANs, so that you have
absolutely,
some sort of backup strategy. Yeah.
Yes.
So having the cellular built in is just amazing. We put them in all our racks now, so we can turn everything on.
One thing we moved to also is having the cellular as eSIMs, so you don't have to juggle around and put in T-Mobile SIMs or whatever. They're eSIMs, and that's a beautiful thing. It's just so easy.
Very cool.
Yeah.
we've gone backwards. We've gone back to networking. So cameras is a big one. I'm still rocking the M50 Mark II with the 22mm lens, which I think I could do much better. And I'd been holding off on the Sony, and I think I would probably go that way now. I just heard so many reports. I just leave this on 24 hours a day, and it works fine. Whereas I heard so many people having overheating problems and whatever. So perhaps that's not as big an issue now. But the autofocus on the Sonys, I think, is amazing, and so I probably will. It's just hard when you have. This is always the case with all of our stuff. Is when you've actually got a perfectly fine solution, and yet you just want to make that 5% difference. But I think in my shot, I think it would make more than 5%, but it's probably not quite worth a couple of grand investment yet. So we'll see. I'll keep hanging on here at the moment. Alex?
If I had stupid money, I'd just put an FR7. And that's what got me into Sony's, was that Sony lent me an FR7 when they first came out, and I played with it for a while, and I was like, oh, this is so nice. And so I had it for a couple of weeks, and then I was like, okay, I'm done with everything else. And so I think the FX30 works fine. I mean, I would love an FX3 to do it. I think that it would make it look a little nicer. I think the FX6 would be overkill to have for my home thing. But I think
what about the immersive Blackmagic immersive? You might just put one of those in.
Throw one of those in. If we're going overkill, we might as well go all the way. Yeah. So, I mean, the big thing for me is less about that and more about being able to set up multiple things. And also, I'm going to probably get away from HDMI again and go back to, I'm pretty close to the next, when I rebuild this, when I rotate, whether I wait for speed rail or not, when I rotate the system, I will most likely go to SDI at the same time, just because I just need more IO. I don't have enough. The extreme isn't enough, and I have a Constellation, and I also have some other, and I have a 4K and a bunch of other things. And so I'm kind of like, I just want to just switch it over so that I have lots of video opportunities. Like one of the things that I've been playing with is Softron has like a key fill, from HTML5 output, as web viewer, and so it can do web pages, but it can also do, if I have HTML5, like whether that's SPX or even Makana, I can have all that stuff just key into the system, but I don't have enough to do that with right now with the switcher. So I think that it's more about more of those things. And then the other thing I want to do is when I rotate this, and one of the reasons I wanted speed rail, and open up the room so that I can have a kind of a work desk that I can do like product reviews and show things, like something that's not quite all here. Right now it's hard for me to do that where I'm at.
Over the shoulder? Or what?
Yeah,
sort
with some close-ups, like a top down, but then have it like come towards me where I can kind of see all of this stuff in the background or something like that. And so right now, and I might be able to do it if I just get rid of this. The switcher right now is taking up a big chunk of space. And so I could theoretically move the keyboard away and have a big space that I could kind of do that with now. So when I rotate it, I'm going to try a whole different set of desks to kind of add to the system, and that give me more desk space. One of the other things I want to do is not have, I don't want my Zoom frame up to be my work. Right now it's like what I work in and what I do. There's some convenience to that when I'm in meetings to have all of that there, but it's inconvenient in the sense that I don't put a teleprompter in front. I look at it if I need to, but I don't have a teleprompter because I need to see that screen. And so I'm going to kind of build the next version around teleprompter so that I have that kind of set up. So it's not quite all camera, but
if you're in the corner, like if you face the corner, ideally you would have sort of two workstations in a sense, like have an on-air sort of Zoom. And
I'm actually going to have a corner and then go another 50 inches out both directions. And so I have like a lot of station, I can move around a little bit to do that. It also helps with like Michael Krasny if he comes over, or it's a little easier for me to set up right now. It's a little bit of little bit of a cluster. So it's so you know that, and again, I'd like to do it all at one time. I may give up. I mean, you know, it's just a matter of you know, having all the capital in the same place at the same time to do it. But that's kind of, you know, what I'm trying to figure out.
Mr. Knight, your camera of choice.
Yeah, similar to Alex. I mean, with an unlimited budget, I would replace all my cameras with Sony FR7s. But I actually did make a very minor change because you know, I kind of do this hand-me-down thing where I slowly upgrade all my cameras, keep everything in the Panasonic Micro Four Third Lumix family. But I was using a GH5, and I found a good deal through my local camera shop because it was used, but I get warranty, so I figured I'll just do it. I got a good price on a GH5S, and the reason why I upgraded to that is because I needed an extra camera anyways, so I took the GH5S and kind of shifted my GH5 down the line. It has a slightly better autofocus. It actually noticeably better autofocus, which I really like. Has other features I'm just not using, but it's kind of nice that it has the Vlog support and the time code support if I need to do something with it. But other than that, just for what I'm doing here, the GH5S is working really well for me with a dummy battery. I mean, I leave these things plugged in 24/7. Not once have I ever had a heat problem. I've never had these cameras ever shut off. So I'm sticking with the Micro Four Thirds stuff. It's working pretty well for me here. And this is what my frame looks like. Obviously, I did get a new lens. I got a 30 mil Sigma f1.4, which I quite like. It was very reasonably priced and slightly better than the Panasonic f1.7 that I was on, which was a 25 millimeter, slightly sharper, and it's working pretty well for me.
CJ?
One of the things that I did in the move was I bought into the Sony family and got the FX3 and was happy with it. And I thought that I was going to be hot stuff and get this. I got this Sigma lens that was the 24-70. It was their Mark II of the f2.8. But then I think it might have been Alex. He's like, "Do you have anything that can go wider? Like, you know, or they can open up more. You know, the focal length you want." And I ended up with the darn Sony FE 50 mil prime at 1.8, and that's the one that we're using. So if there's anything, maybe I'm actually I'm conflicted, right? Because I know I'm happy with the picture. I'm very happy with the picture, but I'm thinking, man, but you're doing it with the $200 lens. Like, there's a better lens in there. You can, but I'm kind of like you said, Grant. You're getting into this diminishing return space. Or like, what am I going to do to get like this much for just this? So
bit.
Probably not a whole lot. The one thing I might do is try and replace some of the other shots that I've been playing with. So like I have the shot from earlier that was the Insta360 in the background that's just plugged in with one of those HDMI converters, and then there's I had another one somewhere else as other angles. It'd be nice if there was something better. I know there's something better. I just don't want to. But it's kind of like Alex said. It's a capital allocation problem. I dumped a lot into the room I built in my basement this year, and we're inching on the wife acceptance factor. We're almost over that.
Yeah, there's a bit of that, and it's the reason that we spoke about lighting before we spoke about cameras, right? And video is because it makes a bigger difference, right? And so that's where I think if I had a couple of grand I was going to put in, I think it's going to be more in set and lighting and stuff. It would make a bigger difference than, you know, camera and whatever. But Jeff, what are you rocking? What camera is that?
I'm still on the same camera I've been on for quite a while. Actually, it's a Bolin. It's a 1-inch box camera, and it has the right lens that I need. It has decent looking color and things. I've definitely got good comments off of it, but I'm never satisfied. And this is the second thing that's on my list is I need to dive into my Panasonics a little harder. And so I'm waiting on it now, but I moved to the teleprompter and I'm really liking the teleprompter, being able to achieve that eye contact. So I had to order a bigger teleprompter in order to use the camera I want to use. And I'm going to be putting in one of my Panasonic UC4000s. So I figured that, you know, a $25,000 head with the $30,000 lens, I mean, it's not overkill, but at least it'd give me a little bit above where I'm at right now, and 5% extra, I guess, figure. But I also, it's another reason is I want to be ready when we go full on HDR. I mean, it is a full HDR chain. The only problem is I had to order another $1,000 worth of SMPTE cable to get it to the CCU in the other end of the building over here. So, you know, it was just like one thing after another. So as soon as all that stuff comes in and everybody gets back in the office, I'll get it all set up.
Nice. And we had Alexander, you were already asking Nigel about his camera. You put a question in there about that. So Nigel, what have you got now?
Okay, so until recently, I've been using Blackmagic 6K, and I found a buyer for my 6K, so I sold it to them. And with a lens that I wasn't terribly happy with, and I've been using the Link 360 for a while, so the Instalink, which I think has been great. But I do have my Sony A7 IV, and so actually this evening is the first time I've actually connected it into the system. So you're looking at the A7 IV. I haven't really done much to tune it yet, but I think it's a pretty great picture. What I haven't done though is, because I've got the 24-70 on it, I do have a 35mm art lens, so that might be going on next to see whether it's the Sigma one, probably the same one you were talking about, CJ. So so I'm going to play with that next. But yeah, so I just switched to my Sony A7 IV, partly to make sure I start using some of the stuff I have.
Colors are great. I just got to jump in. Like I said, as soon as he got, I was like, Nigel, your colors are fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. That's probably because it's automatic and it wasn't me color correcting it.
Very good. All right. So I think we're just down to set, right? I think that was our last thing. So as I already said, I would probably, it's just a tricky environment for me because it's a working space back there for one or two other operators that sometimes come in here. But it just makes me think about, you know, can I set it up in a completely different way where it could still be used as a second workstation? But I don't know. I don't know what quite to do yet. So putting in a grid, I think, would help. And it just seems really dark, and it doesn't matter how much I put back there, it seems to still be very dark. So I'd like to change that.
Grids are really addicting. Like, you know, grids are really addicting.
Yeah.
Like once you like, there's a lot of fiddling about, and then once you put up a grid, it just becomes kind of one of those. I remember a friend, Leo, when Leo had his grid put in, and it was just kind of like suddenly nothing's on the ground. Like everything just goes up, and the thing that I think grids bring on, and with any good device that has good interface or a good setup, is that you make better decisions when things are more flexible. And I think that often is the case for many things, right? That you can, when it isn't a big lift to do something, then suddenly you're doing it, you know, and a lot of times environment kind of drives behavior. And so I think that is, I think that's what happens with grids, in my opinion, is you play with a lot of auto polls and C-stands and things like that, and then suddenly you're on a grid, and then you're just like, okay, I got to put a grid into everything. You know, all the stuff goes away. You know, all the complexity goes away really quickly.
Yeah, my tricky thing is all the monitors, right? So there's a bunch of monitors back there. They're just black holes, you know, and that big TV. I'm thinking of getting rid of that TV,
right?
And making that back wall. I've seen some really nice, kind of like Nigel, that paneling that you've got. There's that nice wooden paneling that then has a black background to it, or a backing to it. I think that would work really well. I've just got to work out where I put all the monitors.
Now, you know, we did one with Jane Goodall where we built a living wall, which I highly recommend. It looks amazing behind things. It's a lot of maintenance. We did try to keep it alive for a while afterwards. Like, we built it for that set. Then we had this big living wall for her. It was
cool.
And it was great, and it looked amazing, and it was perfect for her. And then there was like 3 or 4 weeks of like, this, we should just use this for everything. And then like 4 weeks later, it was all dead. Like, it was just like, you just couldn't keep it alive.
Yeah, you could get a plastic version of them. I have seen some of those that
Yeah.
are not too bad. And if you've got enough shallow depth of field, you'd never pick it. But
Well, it's got a lot of diffusion. It's got, it diffuses
That's true.
the audio really well, and the soil in it, is a pretty big insulator. My dream is just to drop it all into the ground. So you go into the ground, and then you have like this kind of
Earth ship.
open sunlight that lets it go in, like gives you the light for it every day, and then then it's a real
Nice.
wall, and then it's super like dead quiet, and
Well, and it doubles as a doomsday bunker as well for you as well, right?
it's the beginning of one. I mean, I keep on getting bigger. I keep on thinking about what I want to put in the ground, because I've been wanting to build into the ground for most of my life, and I don't know, like I think that every boy thinks about growing into the ground. But I'm like, now I'm up to like 10 40-foot containers. The idea is 5 and 5, and drop them straight down into the ground, and then open them up, and weld them and put them all there. And then you've got different activities at different levels: little theater, a workout area, a shop, of course, all these things that could be underground, but the top floor should just look like Bilbo Baggins. So it's all nice and round, and then when you go under that, then you go into the more industrial sense. But when you're entertaining people, it should all look like Hobbiton. Like that's in my opinion, but not without all the ducking.
That builds ducking. That brings a new meaning to man cave. That's like man cave with multiple rooms.
People think about, like, if I ever had stupid money, which I probably will never have, but if I ever had stupid money, because there'd be a serious man cave, and it would be truly we'd be going down into the ground.
You're gonna build it under your pool. You just keep digging go under the pool.
I have what we call the lower yard. So there's a couple acres down below my house. And so there's a big area there that can be converted. I have it all planned out. Like, I look at it on the satellite and just go, I could do this, and I could just drop it straight down and then raise. I've already talked to Elmo, Elmo, my neighbor, and we talked about fencing the whole thing in. We'll have goats. Yeah, we're gonna have goats wandering around above the house, above the underground cave.
You are doomsday prepping. That's what's happening. You're gonna have your own livestock. You're gonna be.
Hey, we've all talked about my obsession with CMEs. So it's
right. It's gonna happen
any moment. It's like a light switch that for the whole world. So.
Well, so office hours will turn in person at that point, and everyone will come to your house at 7 o'clock in the morning.
But just how will they know? How will
a meeting of a couple of hundred people.
Yeah, exactly. every morning.
So Alexander, you're talking about your set a little bit, because we're talking about the lighting and stuff as well. Is there any changes you'd make there?
I'm pretty happy with it. I probably have to think hard about it. Sometimes I make small little. I'm really into set dress and what stuff is behind me there. So sometimes I'll make smaller changes. Like, obviously, I got a Nintendo, the original NES there, and I've got like some books in the on-air side, and this, little LED, the cheesy American DJ LED light bar meter there, which is not accurate, and some IKEA string lights over here, and you can see when I'm talking, feeding program audio back in there. So I've got these two big things behind me are actual bass traps. These are very, very deep. I've got it covering the glass fireplace because it rings like crazy, and it also doesn't look good. It reflects light. So I got those two big bass traps, but I'm pretty happy with the way it looks. I don't think I would really change a whole lot. Right now I'm in my living room, and I have a lot of acoustic treatments, so the acoustic stuff is done. The one thing I wish on the acoustic, I guess on the side of sound, would be probably if I could find a way to plug these windows to knock it down. If I could bring the ambient noise floor down another 6 dB, but it's expensive to plug windows. And then of course I still want to be able to look out the windows and pull back the blackout curtains that I have when I'm actually not doing stuff as well.
Yeah, that's a trick. Multi-purpose space is the tricky bit. Yeah. Cool. CJ, you talked a bit about it as well, right?
Yeah, I think I'm on team grid. If there's anything, just put in that drop ceiling so that I can start hanging the stuff from from above. It'll definitely help me get a little bit more flexible. And so far, I'm happy with the frame. It's just I have to really cram myself into this, like because it's in the corner to look at the other corner. I did the rotate bit. To get to the other work surfaces is kind of weird. So I think it's the things just out of frame that I'm going to try to clean up and make a little bit more streamlined. Oh, and this just in, I got the plans back. This is the first edition of the architectural plans for Alex's new bunker. It came right. It's got the round top and then it's got the underneath.
Yes. It's a beginning, but you got to put it inside the middle of a lake. That's the other part of it. Is you build the lake, you cut the lake out, then you build it all, and then you let the water fall, and all the outer edges are all glass. I used to draw those in study hall.
Okay.
And actually, you may need to put an elevator in as well.
I mean, that's a given. I mean, you can't really have
not getting any
any
younger.
of these things without it. Yeah.
A freight elevator too, not any like little one person thing. It's got to be 2,000 pounds, 10 by 10, just a column.
And it doubles as a Faraday cage. That's the key. Is
all right, Jeff, help us.
Yeah. So I'm sitting over here and I'm thinking the same way. Probably Nigel is because we're both in Texas and he's in the Rocky area. So you don't dig there. I'm in Southeast Texas. If you dig here more than a foot, you're below sea level. So it's water at that point. And to think that you were going to put a basement upon a basement, upon a basement, upon a basement, you might as well just learn to swim. That's it. Period. And over.
Well, I'm not going to build it in Houston. I mean, that's all I'm saying. I'm on top of I'm on top of a mountain. So
I wish I could be in some of those places. Though I like my flat land because I don't have to worry about hills. My daughter goes to school in San Marcos, and it is hills everywhere, just as in the rocky areas there too. So nothing gets dug and nothing gets buried there either. But looking at those mountains out there, there are hills.
I did a calculation before we bought the house. If both of the ice caps melt completely, 100%, the water will come right up to the top of my lower yard. I'll have beachfront. So that was definitely some math there.
They could melt.
I got to know where
they could do like
it lasts.
a half of 0.5%, and I'm underwater. That's all there is to it.
No, I'm okay.
So, so Jeff, you were talking about you had a lead wall before behind you.
I miss it. Actually, I do. I really do miss it. I actually was thinking, and I was looking at the cells going on of putting a more of an insert studio style and putting a 98-inch or maybe 85 at the lowest size. I did some measurements because an 85 actually would look good on my wall at my house. But I had a 72 at my house that I could possibly bring here, but the 72 has a really bad reflection issue on it. So I said, well, I'm going to put that off for a while. So I looked at 85s, went by Best Buy. I actually have video footage of my daughter standing in front of them. Because the one thing I was worried about was how much space I've gotten spoiled, especially with the larger LED screen back behind me. I was spoiled as I could move around. I didn't feel like I was like right up against the wall. So I just don't have a plan for anything behind me really right now, other than find a steamer that actually works, because this drape drives me insane that you probably might not see it, but I see it in my previews and I'm just, it drives me insane.
A little bit.
Yeah. I can't get it to fall out. It's a thin.
I took Alex's recommendation to just wet it, to just spray it with water. And I just used a spray bottle with water in it, and I think a little bit of vinegar they suggest as well. I put a bit of vinegar in it, and then
I might have to try that.
It dried straight.
My wife actually has a really good steamer. She's a dance teacher, and so she goes, well, I have a steamer, and it's like, why don't you try that? I'm like, how long have you had that? I don't know, like 10 years or something like that. That's the way it goes.
All right, Nigel, finish us out with the set. What were you doing?
Well, first of all, you may notice slight change in camera. That's because I guess the A74 got to the edge of its heat moment and decided to shut itself off. So there's a learning. 2 hours and 5 minutes will be the limit unless I can get some more air conditioning in this room. So we've jumped into the A7 into the Link 360. Again, I'm renting, so because I'm renting, I'm not going to do very much. I mean, these very nice Art Novian things are leaning against the wall, which makes them next to useless. But at some point, I will put them properly in and do a bit more set decoration. But at the moment, as we'll be moving in the next 2 months, spending a lot of money on that is probably not smart.
Where are you going to move to?
So the current plan, I think, is Florida. We are going to probably move to a city right in the center of Florida where we look for a permanent place. So we're going to rent in Orlando for a year.
Nice.
Very cool. So I wanted to, when you're talking, Alex, about the underground, have you seen this? This is the Apple store in Singapore. And so I was just there. So if you see, we just skip past here for a second, right? So it's completely on an island.
Is it glass underneath?
No, it's not. But check this out. This is the inside of it. So there's a mall. This is on Marina Bay Sands, which is very,
I know where that
spot.
is. Where is it? Where is it in Marina Bay Sands?
Well, it's just outside. So where they have,
because I walked around that.
It's next to the casino because you can lose more money in the Apple store.
Right.
Well, this mall is the Marina Bay Sands shops. So this is the mall of the shops. And then if you keep, this is like, it's a normal Apple store when you look at it like that. But when you go down to the escalators at the back, it comes up into here. Into the middle of the dome, and so
wow,
it really is incredible. So there's the escalators there, and so it's totally that shop is totally underwater.
The thing I love about Apple is that when you see their stores, it's like, what can you do if you have all the money in the world? There's not really any. They're just like, what do we want to do?
Yeah, and that just how clean that is there.
Yeah.
And it was really hot outside and just beautiful inside, because they've got this air conditioning that's pumping up in those vents in the floor. But it's just a stunning, it was funny actually. I said to one of the employees, I was like, I've seen a lot of stores, and I try now only to look at the flagship stores. And so, because all the shopping center stores are the same, in anywhere in the world, but the flagship stores are amazing. And he said, yeah, well, if you've seen the Orchard Road one, which is also a beautiful store in Singapore. And so I saw that. And he said, that's a flagship store for the country. He said, this is an international flagship store. And I was like, I don't doubt it.
Different level.
Yeah, it is a whole other level. So yeah, I've been to, I think that was probably my 58th Apple store. So I'm getting up there.
Yeah, I don't know if
collecting
I've counted. Have you been to the one in Ginza in Tokyo?
No.
Oh, that's a good one.
No, not yet.
It's nice.
Yeah,
They closed that one down.
Did they? Yeah, I spoke at that
one.
I thought
Ginza might have relocated.
Yeah.
The Louvre in Paris is cool.
I've spoken about like 5 or 6 of them, I think, and so, but the one in Paris is really nice as well. But I used to think about their theaters, like who has the best theater, and then they started getting rid of all the theaters, which was really a bummer.
In Michigan, I used to do the presentations at the one in Michigan Avenue, and I used to do like here's how you use your iPhone and iPhoto, and then I always felt so cool. But they had these crazy projectors. They didn't have enough throw space to fill up the projectors. Yeah. This massive projector that would hit 4 mirrors before it would actually get to fill the screen. It's that.
All right, that was fun. Let's look at some questions we've got there. Alexander.
Oh yeah, the question. First question is from.
No, hang on.
Which
Alexander? Alexander was all prepped, ready to go.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, this one's from Keith Lee from Texas here on the panel. How would the panel think that this cloud production mumbo jumbo is making progress?
Alex?
I think we're definitely getting there. I mean, I think you know what's useful about it is that we're getting a sense of how what works, what we need to keep on getting better at. You know, and so I think that's, and also costs. so we're keeping track of all of those. Like, you know, I think that it's and it's such an important piece of what we're doing right now. So that, I mean, beyond just having a great conversation on Mondays, it's really important for us because extra hours allows us to kind of exercise vector and figure out where we're going to go with it, and you know, we keep on adding a little bit, and we're figuring things out for each piece. And so so I think overall I would say it's been a big success.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that what's the best way of testing systems is to do a daily show. The next best thing is to do weekly, and so
Yeah.
being able to do it weekly and play around, and I really appreciate Taylor's kind of spearheading everything for us, and playing around and thinking about how we both consolidate or kind of you know, tidy up different things, as well as sort of expand and think about how we, you know, do things a little differently. And so we're looking forward to next year to see how
You
we
know,
can
and
push it a bit more.
yeah, absolutely. And I really do think that when we figure out how to get this all working in the cloud effectively, you know, and we get close to the parity, there's two things. One is getting close to the parity of the hardware system, but also making it something that's relatively turnkey for anybody to use. I think that
Mm.
it really makes a big difference for a lot of communities, because I think this conversation, we figured out how to do this kind of conversation really effectively, you know, with the tools that we have and everything else. And I find myself more and more just wishing there were more office hours. You know, I'm learning Airtable right now, and I'm just like, I just wish there was an office hours for Airtable so I can just ask questions like, why is why can't I do this? And does this really cost this much money? And so you know, all these different bits and pieces of it, but I think I feel like that for my pool, and I feel like that for my, you know, like all these, like, you know, you know, you want this kind of conversation that's open-ended, answering people's questions, to be available for everything, you know. And you know, like I was just installing a new radio in my car, and just, you know, you rip your radio out and then you start looking at all the connectors, and you're like, okay, took my son and I a little while to figure out how everything, because the instructions are not particularly clear, you know. And so you're kind of like, there's a bunch of wires you're not going to use that are all hanging out, and you just wish that there was somebody to, you know, like car stereo people having an office hours that were, you know, or you know, that you could go to. And so you just feel like this is an opportunity that could open up to a lot of different things, from cooking to pools to any vertical that we think about, but it's too hard to do right now. Like, you know, it doesn't, like, the tools are too hard to do. And I think that as we make these tools better, but not give up the quality, like there's a lot of things that will kind of let you do a conversation. I mean, you can all jump into Zoom, but having something that looks as good as broadcast, or potentially better than broadcast, and I think we're barreling towards better than broadcast. You know, I think that, I mean, right now, if you look at remote participants in most shows, wow, even with the insert studios, they look horrible. Like, you know, that's the funny thing, is that, well, when we're used to looking at what we look at every day for office hours, when you look at an insert studio delivery, it is very latent. The background is often sharper than the foreground, than the person talking. Yeah. The lighting is, you know, the backgrounds are tired, you know, like they haven't, no one's investing in that. And so we're already getting to a point where we're passing that. And if we can get to a point where, again, we're doing something in the cloud, and the reason that I think that's important is it really is not how you, and Nigel's talked about this a lot, is how little what you say matters, and how much how you say it and how you look when you're saying it does matter. And people don't, and the thing is, it's insidious, because people will feel like something's way more important, and they won't know why, you know. And then that's where you have real power. Like, when people feel things and they don't know why, that's the big lever. Like, that's how you get things done, you know. And when they know why, then they can diffuse it. You know, like, but when they don't know why, when they just feel like something, when you walk into an Apple store, you can feel the level of detail, and you may not be able to point it out, but you can, you know, there's a consistency there, and a particularness that you don't see, just because we were talking about Apple stores, but that you don't see anywhere else. And I know, and I noticed that when I was talking about this, I think on Sunday, I used to try to reproduce ads that I really liked so that I learned what was different. And I noticed that if I just typed all the words, it was exactly the same, but mine didn't look as good until I did a difference over top of them. And I realized they were kerning every letter. Like literally someone went in and, the ad agency had kerned at least in the title, every letter was kerned, for it. And when you go before and after, what I had just typed in didn't, it just didn't look the same. It just felt cheap, And so I think that in the same sense, when we keep on up, and that's the thing that you don't notice, that you feel, like you can feel it if one feels cheap. For a long time, that's why Keynote, everyone wanted to use Keynote instead of PowerPoint, is because PowerPoint's kerning was bad. And Keynote's naturally was better and had better anti-aliasing on the text. Really weird stuff that made it look more solid, And so when we spend all this time on quality and HDR and 4K and good cameras and lighting and everything else, it's not something that most people will notice, really. It's just something that the whole show feels bigger, and that's why we do this crazy thing where we keep on. And I don't think everyone should do it, but we need to keep on trying to find that outer edge.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff, I'm interested in your observations of it too. But one of the things with is 4K. Again, this morning today we tried, turning on live streaming of 4K, and it just struggled a little bit.
Well, there is a reason behind it. This instance is tired. It needs, and it's like 2 versions behind the current version of Vector. So it's on our list of going through and blowing it apart and putting it back together again. But that would help tremendously because there's definitely improvements there. My reason for the question was this. It's a twofold question, is because I'm kind of feeling that, we've been doing cloud for a long time. So I'm very familiar with all the steps you got to do. And you have to have this open. You have to have that open. You have to be logged into this. And so we're trying to simplify that with our platform that we're using ourselves. And as we're starting to roll it out, that's the goal, is to make it as easy. Like Alex has said, it's like, one button, turn it all on. And that's what we started with. That as one of our primary things, is because not everybody wants to be a IT tech, or they don't want to have that badge in LinkedIn that says I'm an AWS practitioner or whatever, right. 15 different versions they have that are associated with AWS. So I know not everybody wants to do that. And to be honest, I don't want to have to look at a console all the time either. So I would like to have it just be simple and just have macros that just do the things that I need them to do. So that's kind of where I was going to, and that's where I think we're getting there. And talking to the guys that are like Peter's. Let's see, Peter's not switching the show today. I believe Robert Green is switching the show today. Peter did last week's, and then so Robert stepped in, and Alan's shadowing a little bit too. So we've got people that are learning the process, and just like anything that's you're trying to perfect, is just going to take more muscle memory to do it. But we're trying to make it as easy as possible too. But I think that's probably one of the hardest things, is to get people to think outside of the box of what they're used to doing. More so,
and I do think that when that interface is easy, when it is easy for people to turn on, suddenly there's an explosion of conversation and streaming and everything else that happens, that by creating an interface that isn't a big lift. So what you're working on, Jeff, is so important, because it is really, it'll turn a switch. It's kind of like, there was no, until the iPhone came out, we did a certain set of things with our phone, because anything more than that would be too complicated. And when it became easy, suddenly everyone was doing something else. And I think in the same sense that when it becomes easy and it's not expensive, and then you just turn it on and it just works, I think that you end up with a lot more conversations. And I think that it changes the way we think of broadcast. So it changes, there's a lot of conversations that want to be had that just aren't being had because it's too hard. It's too hard to do right now. And I think that's hopefully where we can solve that. And we look at, like, we think about, it's almost 5 years since COVID closed down, and not to get back to the Armageddon, but we are one mutation away from something that makes COVID look like a walk in the park. So the H5N1 we talked about it last week, is one mutation away from shutting everything down again. So all the stuff that we're working on is really important because we weren't ready 5 years ago, and we're much more ready now, but we have to keep on moving down because that can happen at any moment.
Yep.
I think global pandemics aside, though, there's also a question of people have got to fix their business models. So many businesses have designed around a fixed set of assets, and moving to variable is very scary for people. And you know, we hear it even on this show where people still aren't happy with subscription-based pricing for software. That's a business model, and there's a lot of people who think fixed are going to have to start thinking variable.
Well, and I think that, you know, there was a great interview with the founder of today on CNBC, and he was just they were talking about the fact that, you know, like this whole back to work, you know, return to office is coming up as the new year hits and everybody else. And he goes, well, it's a good play. He said, it's a really strong play if what you want to do. His is all virtual, like they don't have any offices, and he said it's a really strong play if you want to fire people without firing them. If you want them to quit, making them return to office, he said, is a pretty, you just want to be, he said, you just want to be, he said, I used to say as a CEO, because I guess he was the Evernote before, he ran Evernote before that. And he said, I used to say that the hardest thing, I mean, all of us used to say that the hardest thing to do would be to find good people. Like as a CEO, that's your hardest thing to do is as a company is to find good people. And he goes, it dramatically changed when we didn't have to find them in a certain city. When I could find them anywhere, he goes, you know, our ability to find good people went up astronomically. And so the thing is that, and we see this all the time with office hours and the people that we hire, all of us hire amongst ourselves, is because we know people all over the world, we know who to hire. And I know that I'm not limited to who I can find in San Francisco. I'm limited to the world, you know, and I think that that's where companies are the next generation of companies are gonna all, you know, be, you know, there's things that have to be done in person, but a vast majority of them are getting more and more virtual because, you know, there's because you can get much more aggressive about that. And then that changes how events happen, because when people don't all live in those events, or if it's really, you know, like the other thing you get into when you're not going to work all the time, when you're not spending an hour a day driving, you get pretty sensitive to going to events. like you're just kind of like, oh, that's a long way away. Like, you know, like because you're not used to the beating anymore. You know, like you're not used to the abuse of driving an hour and a half all the time. And then an hour and a half looks like a long, like you know, going to Whole Foods, which is like 10 minutes away. I'm like, do I need to do that today? You know, like I don't know, you know, and
delivered.
I know exactly. They just never bring the right things. So anyway, but I think that what that opens up is the whole the way we think about how we do events, and that 5 nines, the 99.999% of the people that are going to come is going to keep on getting bigger. It's going to be the 6 nines, you know, and how do you serve that? And I think that that's where all this cloud production really makes a difference.
Really cool. Jeff, you were going to jump in there.
No, I nothing important to add to that other than I agree with you about finding the right people. I don't even consider it anymore. I just want the right person. I don't care about where they at. I just don't care.
No. Yeah, that's cool.
And whatever efficiency you think you have because people are coming to the office is 1/10 the power of being able to recruit from anywhere in the world. Like it's just exactly. Like it just doesn't hold a candle to the ability to recruit everywhere.
It's true. Next question.
Bobby Rafferty in Central Florida is asking, I've been texturing 3D models with Substance 3D tools into USDZ files. Can you give me any insights on what is capable of Apple Vision Pro?
Alex?
I don't know what the hard limits are. I know what they are for the mobile platforms, which is a 50 meg file and 2 million polygons, I believe. And I don't know if they've updated that for the Vision Pro. I mean, you can get a lot done with 2 million polygons and 50 megs, but I've definitely generated models that are much bigger than that, that are there. So, but I think that the Vision Pro, I don't know if they've published any larger numbers than that. Maybe CJ knows of what those specs are, but it's capable of a lot. I think in some cases, Apple's throttling what you can put in, what they'll let you open up in it, but it's capable, I think, of more. I think they want it to be always a good performance. So high frame rate.
Would Jigspace have that same sort of
Jigspace is way below
restrictions?
that. Like those
Okay.
polygons that you're looking at, Jigspace is a fraction of that kind of. They're playing way inside that. Those are probably 25 meg files, and they're probably not more than 1 million polygons, or even 500,000 polygons at the most. When I look at them, I can kind of see where the edges are, and I can kind of get a sense
Yeah.
of it. And so most of these are much smaller than that. So the Jigspace gives you an idea. The problem with Jigspace is it's not a lot of realistic texturing. That's where things get heavy for the renderer. So they've got geometry, but you'll notice that number one is circles. You'll start to, if you look at them really closely, you'll start to see the faceting, and you can very quickly kind of figure out how many facets are being used. And then the second thing is that the textures aren't as realistic as they could be. And that's where where a lot of it gets really heavy. It becomes a heavy model.
Those ones, so yeah, that's what you're talking about with the circles and things like that.
Yeah, if you get close, sometimes you can start to see the
Right. faceting,
and that's when you can kind of get a sense of how much it is. And still, it still looks good, but like that lander, the lunar lander or whatever that was there, it's the reflections are good, but they don't feel like you're there, right? Like they feel, it feels impressive, but it doesn't feel like it's like indistinguishable from the world. And we do a lot of visual effects. We're capable of building things that are indistinguishable from the world. They just chose not to go down that path. And that's somewhat, it takes longer to make it, and it also takes more to render it. If you wanted to run on lots of platforms, you make it a little lower texture resolution.
Right. CJ?
I know that the limit to send it via a text message, or an iMessage rather, is still 50 megs. But I know that, like, Chris Fritchie sent me, right when the Vision Pro came out, a model that he did that was around 200 megabytes that looked really good. And I want to say I put one in that I made from it was either a Polycam capture or an export that I did out of another program that approached a gig.
Mhm.
And it took a minute to open up, but once it opened up, it was performant. It was almost like, I don't know what it was going through to get it to display that made it that took so long, but once it was there, it was like walking around the space, and really, really nice. So like I said, I've tried, but I haven't hit any walls yet.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it reminds me that we will do a Vision Pro extra hours again. We did one where we were all using avatars. We don't need to do that necessarily, but just the topics will be thinking about the Apple Vision Pro turning a year old as far as its release, and seeing what this year might bring for it would be interesting discussion. All right, next question.
This one's from Talalik Lopez Waterman. Traveling somewhere in the United States, do you all remember PAL and NTSC? Do those formats, and by extension color spaces, have any place in today's world? Maybe just for watching old movies and TV?
Alex?
What's funny is that when you look at old movies, a lot of them are getting remastered into HDR from film. There's the dark times. The dark times are from about the early 80s until the mid 2000s. There's about 25 years that are the dark ages. And those dark ages were, we have video, so let's cut everything at 4:3 at standard def, whatever. And many TV shows like A-Team and lots of those are all video only. The Greatest American Hero, one of my favorites. I just like the song. I realized when I watched it again, I was like, I don't like the TV show. But the song was great. And so, but what we've noticed is there are a handful of them, like they just finished remastering the X-Files. So for a long time, you'd only see the X-Files in 4:3 low resolution. And now they went back to the film and rebuilt all of it. And it looks gorgeous. I mean, it looks really, really good. We're watching, the family has started that one. So we're now there's 10 seasons, I think, or 11 seasons. So we've got half a year of X-Files to watch before we watch something else. So that one looks great. If you go back into the 70s, so you go to, open some of those 70s films up, the Charlie's Angels and the other things like that are all like done. That was all film, and so they're still as predictable and weird TV as, like I opened up Charlie's Angels, I was like, oh, the video looks really good, and then I watched it for like 2 minutes and I was like, it's really boring to watch. So so the writing not so much. So anyway, but if you but so I don't know, there's this in between that you're talking about, and generally people are converting those to, I mean, they're mostly getting converted to Rec 709, so that's the box, that's the container that they're getting put into. But these newer ones are being put into what looks like some kind of, Rec 2020, and they're, they are, because these are original film, and they're taking advantage of that fact and remastering them. So I think when we talk about the old stuff, I think we're going back to that, and you really should try to buy the ones that are the most effective to make sure you have them. Like I just saw that Amazon, did you see that Amazon took the cemetery scene out of It's a Wonderful Life, and then to make it run faster. And I was like, you took what? I, I, I don't understand. Like of all the things, like there's all the things to take out of them. Like, why would you take that out? Like, it's just like someone at Amazon thought that wasn't a good idea, but that just everyone's hackles went up. Like, Amazon is like, what do you guys do? It's like when Turner started colorizing everything. And so that's been, so it made me glad. And by the way, if you haven't watched, I think as you get older, It's a Wonderful Life, at some age you start getting teary at the end. At some certain age, I'm just warning you that you're just teary the whole way through. I've realized I've reached the age where I'm just kind of like, all the way through. So I can only withstand watching it once a year, but we watch it on Christmas, either Christmas Eve. We usually watch it on Christmas Eve.
Nice. Yeah, PAL and NTSC has been it's particularly it's still a thing, I think, for me at least, in Australia, where we're 50 hertz, and then we're 25 frames often, and so sometimes if on cameras I want to, lots of the cameras are still multi-format as well, and so sometimes you have to change it into NTSC to be able to get 30 frames a second, because the default when we buy equipment here is that it's 50 frames and 25. So there's still that kind of aspect, but I think it was always a thing. It was a big deal to buy a VHS player that could play NTSC tapes, and in Australia that was. Otherwise you would get, same with DVD players, right? So DVD players would just be PAL, and so you could only play, and then they were region code, encoded and whatever. So that was all a massive deal. So I'm glad that that's kind of gone away, and really just online now, it's you don't even think about it, which is nice. CJ, you want to add to that?
Yeah, and it's not as relevant. I mean, it was an electrical limitation at some point because of the being on a different hertz in your power. There's how often that electron gun could fire. So it's funny how that it's like we've got this very like original problem in sending a video signal that is still decades after it's actually relevant is still dominating this some of these decisions that hardware manufacturers making are just trapped in that old thinking. It's it's kind of wild. The only other thing I wanted to mention though is sometimes when they're taking these TV shows and rescanning them into 1080 or 4K, there's even more controversy because Seinfeld, for instance, when Netflix did the rescanning, they did it in 16:9, and I rewatched the whole thing purely because I had an employee who loved Seinfeld, and I had not seen it, in its entirety. So I binged all of Seinfeld while I was working on another project, and then he's like, "What were your favorite pair of sneakers?" I was like, "Sneakers?" He's like, "Yeah, Jerry's got the sneakers." And I was like, "I never saw Jerry wear the sneakers." They totally cut the sneakers out of the TV show because of the reframing. You're like, what's going on?
They actually scaled it up.
Things matter.
Yeah. Wow.
Scandal.
Next question. Last question, maybe. Mm-hmm.
This one's from Robert Shoji in Los Angeles, California. Have you ever had an SD card fail during a video shoot? How often should SD cards be replaced?
Alex?
Forever is the right answer. SD cards are just not. They're very, very frustrating. so they're not that stable. If you get something like a Pro Grade or some of the other ones but I almost never record the SD cards with I always have something else recording. Like I never record to SD cards by themselves. I'm always recording to an SSD. I'm recording to something else. The SD cards are the extras, and sometimes I have to use them because I'm capturing ISOs or whatever, and that's required. But if a camera has a hard drive, has a USB-C, I'm going to be capturing to a hard drive. If it's going to be, I don't use the SD cards very often for anything that's mission critical. I do use them. I use them when it's convenient and it's fast and I want to grab some things. I have some little hyperdecks that I use, but when we do real work for money, we're using full size hyperdecks with, typically to record those, and which, got a bad reputation in the early days because they had a heat problem. We haven't had that problem recently. And anybody who
you probably don't stack them together either, though, right? That was
we do now. We do.
too,
No, we put them. We learned pretty quickly that if you put 6 of them together, the middle 2 aren't going to record. But so we got used to, like, for a long time. I mean, I used to have. I mean, at one point I probably had 40 of them. And the big thing is that it's all fine to say, oh, you should use Key Pros, but anyone that's pulled the Key Pro out before it closed the file, and that will know that the scar there is deep, and I've had people dump all of our Key Pro data by hit one button, and they were all slaved and it was gone. Like everything was gone. And the only reason I had anything from that show was because I didn't trust them, and because I had so many, and I used to own 20 Key Pros. Like, it's not like I never had a Key Pro. And the big thing was, though, is that I just, I got used to having, when you get used to the SSDs, it's just the price. I could literally, for what I did is we would buy, part of our budget was always that we would just buy new SSDs for every show. Like, it was just like, and so I have stacks of SSDs laying around because we'd use them, we'd charge for them once, and then we'd use them for other things for a while. And we usually never use the SSDs in production more than 4 times, like it was just like, cause they're not built for that. They're only scheduled for 150 insertions. Like, that's how they're built. And so we'd use them for a couple shows, and then we put them to sleep. And we put them into, like, we just use them for other things and everything else. And that was just part of the cost of it. It's like, you used to buy tape, we used to buy tape. We used to buy, we had big PVWs, and we bought tape cassettes, and we charged it to the production. We just did the same thing. It's the same price actually for the SSDs, but you couldn't do that you couldn't have that kind of disposable, experience with Key Pros. So anyway, so we use those full size ones, and we've been super successful, with that. The SD cards, though, we've had hyperdecks with the SD cards, and we've lost a lot of them. I mean, I would say probably, we've gone through all kinds of different SD cards, but probably I consider the failure rate like 10%, which is astronomical in my world. So they're like extra backups, or we use them for playback or something like that, but I don't depend on SD cards for mission critical work.
Yeah. I have used same hyperdecks with SD cards, and we use them a lot. I think the key is both having redundancy in a different format, as well as very quickly copying off those files. And that's I do that regularly. So we're recording sessions of something. I'm taking that recording when the session's finished, and I know whether it's worked or not. And so then I can work on my backup strategies and go and find the other ways of doing it. I read recently about a photographer who had just a nightmare experience shooting a wedding, and then the photos just didn't work. The cards, couldn't get the card, couldn't get the photos off the card. Sent it to a data recovery specialists, and they just couldn't do anything. And he's like, what do you do at that point? You're saying to the bride and groom, sorry, I'll do a free shoot for you. Like, you can imagine how soul destroying that is. He managed to, the camera would still read it. And so he was able to get low res previews sort of off that he was able to transfer to his phone. That's the only thing that he could do, and at least he had something that he was able to use. But it reminded me again about, you see wedding photographers all the time having multiple cameras, right? And often that's because of lens, configuration, or the way they've got the cameras set up. But it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it, that they would shoot on multiple cameras, and so they've always got different shots, and then very quickly copying those off, because I would rather know that I've had a failure on the day when I can do as much, scrambling to fix my problem, rather than waiting until 2 days later when the whole event's finished, and then realizing that I've got a problem.
I had when we had the 950, or the 950 that I have here, we used to come with a computer for the 950, so that we could see everything and make sure everything was working. And we worked on a really big project, a movie that you've all seen, I'm sure. And they had a 1-day shoot, and we said, hey, this is part of the rental. Like, we'll just do it. And they, no, we got it handled. We'll take it from here. And the DIT didn't put. I could see him not putting it up. I was like, you might want to look at the camera. And he's like, no, it's fine. I got it all figured out and everything else. And yeah, that was an expensive day because they shot everything just a little out of focus. And then blame my lens. They're like, oh, the lens wasn't collimated. I'm like, okay. I mean, you could tell if you were looking at a screen.
If you looked at it,
like if you were looking at the screen, you would know, at a big screen. And it's funny how far we've come in that area, because it used to be you shot everything blind, or in some little window, and now, there's no reason to not be having a big screen that you're looking at everything and making sure it's right.
Yep, absolutely. All right, content recommendations. We're going to go with Alex first.
I think I already gave mine. It's if you don't watch It's a Wonderful Life.
Wonderful Life.
I was just like, what a movie. Like, the fact, I guess I'm just amazed. I watched if you buy it, you get the behind the scenes. And so they talk about Frank Capra and all of the stuff. And, it's a movie that we would never see. None of us would know it existed if the copyright hadn't run out by accident. Like, it was, so that what happened is that it didn't go anywhere when it came out. And so then it just got put into something, and someone just didn't update the copyright. Like, there was and I think it was in the 70s that suddenly someone realized that the copyright on it was, so it was a free movie to play. Like, it was that's what happened is that the copyright it wasn't renewed, and it became a free movie. So then all the TV, like, hey, we can play this for free and we can run ads against it. It's free money for the television stations. And so, but it's still one of my favorite Jimmy Stewart, that and Harvey. So I would pair the two of them. If you haven't seen Harvey, excellent movie. Anyway, it's about a giant rabbit. So anyway,
sneaking another recommendation in there.
Yeah, I snuck two of them in. See, I see two
right.
Jimmy Stewart. But the key to sneaking a second one in is to keep them related to each other. They're but I think that if you've listened to the show and you haven't watched It's a Wonderful Life, it's just a masterful film. That's just it's just incredible. Like, there's so much about it that works, and it doesn't do it's not zany. There's not a lot of big camera moves. It's just really good acting and really, really well written. And the story is just and I admit, as you get older, the story gets better. You get a little as your lines start to line up to it, you're like, oh, it's pretty good. So anyway,
very good, Alexander.
This one's not going to be a surprise to anybody, but I just bought a license for DaVinci Resolve Studio. I've been using the free version for quite a while now, but I bought it for one reason, and it was mainly to save me a lot of time with the very tedious, laborious process of cutting short-form clip for social media from longer-form content. And so, often my client will say, oh, can you take that you remember when the guest said so-and-so, can you please grab that part? And then I have to, I've got to listen to the whole episode, try to find that part, cut it out. It's horribly long and inefficient. And so because DaVinci Resolve Studio has that new AI text or speech-to-text transcription feature where now it takes a couple minutes to index the whole video, and then I can just type in a couple keywords and find it. And not only that, it will put in and out points, and I can even do text-based editing and delete that whole section, or I can also remove silence as well. And it's saving me literally hours, and it's amazing. Best $400 Canadian I've ever spent.
That's cool. Nice. CJ.
Last time around, I recommended a band called Lake Street Dive. The lead singer of which, Rachel Price, is an absolute powerhouse of a vocalist and is part of another group that I'm going to recommend today, Rachel and Vilray, Vilray, as I spell that. And they have an album that came out about a year ago called I Love a Love Song, and it is a collection of new music written in the style of older Great American Songbook stuff. So it sounds like pop jazz from the 30s to the 50s kind of era. And it's just a wonderful album to put on when, you want to just have a quiet evening, enjoy a cocktail. It's just, it's called I Love a Love Song by Rachel and Vilray. If you're into Great American Songbook jazz, you are going to love this album. They're great.
Very cool. Jeff, what you got?
I tend to lean more towards science fiction as my choice of what to watch. I don't know why. So I've got fed up with.
Because you're a geek.
Maybe so. You called it. All right. So I do lean that direction. There's just a big hole. So I'm not finding a whole lot. Recently though, I mean I'm caught up on Dune, and that one just kind of is slow to me. So I don't really, I don't know, I would say we enjoy it, but then Silo is another one, and that show just continually surprises me. It just seems like it's still weaving things in and out. But I have to say the kid in me absolutely loves the new Star Wars, the Skeleton Crew. I just sit there and giggle and laugh and just, yeah, it's just enjoyable. I don't know, something about that universe. It just, even though it's technically probably a kid's show, I just can sit there and enjoy it. And that, I think that's what entertainment should be, right? It just should be enjoyable.
I wandered up to that and then didn't watch it. So now I'm tempted to watch it now. Now that you
I enjoy it.
If you like it, then
it's worth the time to me.
Okay.
At least.
Right. Very good. Very good.
And
It's no
Nigel,
wonderful life by any means.
Yeah, you won't be weeping all the way through it.
If that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So Nigel, you did a tease right back at the start of the episode. You did.
So occasionally I'm looking for like half-hour shows just to fill the filler between things, and I find most American sitcoms now so awful that it's just impossible to watch. Occasionally a good one comes, but so searching through Netflix, I found a series called Upper Middle Bogan.
Yes.
Which was an Australian series that was for 3 years. And sadly, there's only 3 seasons, but I need to know what a bogan is.
We have spoken. I thought that we spoke about this once before. Lower class, lower socioeconomic areas is generally where a bogan would come from.
Yeah, I guess it's middle class and redneck almost would be.
I was going to say, is there an urban-rural dichotomy in there too?
Yeah,
they are a bit like the thing about the soccer show on Apple TV, Ted Lasso, is that there's a level of humanity to it and humor, which really works very well. And Upper Middle Bogan, which I didn't think was going to be great, has turned out to have a really high quality writing, very sensitive. So I'm thoroughly enjoying that, and I'll be practicing my Australian on you later.
Very good.
Now,
that's a very good one.
If you like that, I just need to ask you: have you seen Lucky Logan, Nigel?
No, I haven't seen Lucky Logan. What's Lucky? Rings a bell.
I see Grant how I slipped that in. I slipped another one in just when you weren't
another
looking.
One.
But if you like that kind of gritty, it's basically Ocean's 11 in Appalachia.
Okay.
And
what I feel like
it's Soderbergh. It's Soderbergh.
You were saying that you wanted that you sort of squeeze in another recommendation if it's loosely linked. I think I think that it's a very loose connection when it's Bogan and Logan. I don't think you can just do
Yeah.
rhyming words.
And it has
That's the
Daniel
only thing that
Craig in
relates.
It has Daniel Craig in it. So, you know, like,
Okay. All right. Very good. I've just started the second series of Squid Games, and I'm
I can't watch it. Is it? I haven't watched the first one. It just.
it's
Have
good.
you? Is it
It's
good?
good.
Okay.
It's really good.
It's just a
Very
more
good.
realistic Mr. Beast games.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I
well,
still haven't gotten up to
and then
watch
they
the second
did
episode of that.
the reality TV show as well. Like the actual, they did a Squid Games, reality show, which was also really interesting and great. Because it kind of
Did anyone die?
But everybody makes it, right?
Everyone
they
makes it.
they all spoiler alert, they all live. But they have like a blood pack in them, and so when that explodes, that's when they know they have to lie down. So it works. It works. Anyway, there's a lot of recommendations there. So I think we've done well. I think we probably have sold a lot of equipment from our first hour of discussion. People buying things, at least in their mind, about what they're going to buy, and then some other recommendations there. So big thank you as we finish the last show for the year. It's been pretty epic, and it's been nice to be able to do these shows and do it a little bit differently. But again, a big thanks to Taylor and Jeff for kind of setting things up and making Vector work and keeping an eye on that and thinking about it when we're not. We certainly appreciate that. And then we had Robert was the TD today, and Alan doing some question management, and Peter was a backup TD. And EIC as well, engineer in charge. That sounds official, doesn't it? But thank you all. And then everyone that was asking a few questions. You don't get as many questions in, admittedly, on extra hours, but we definitely appreciate it, and we keep an eye on the chat as well. And so we love it when people are watching live. Thank you. We're going to do it again in a week, which is next year. But it's only
it's gonna be
it's only a week away, so you don't have to wait a whole year, just a week. Join us again then, and if you want to get there's a few questions that we had to push back. They'll be sitting in your in the Meccana there. You'll need to copy that, paste it out into office hours, into the other Meccana instance. But then if you do that, then you can push it through for 7 a.m. show tomorrow. So do that, and see us again next week. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.